Rogers had been requesting attention from the bartender that evening as usual, telling her he needed a ride home that day. According to Linedecker, she first consented to it but afterwards changed her mind after getting a horrible feeling. Rogers allegedly told her, "I always get what I want," after becoming enraged by this. In the days that followed, she would recount this incident to the media numerous times. Rogers then approached Gallagher, who initially turned him down for a ride but later decided to accept him. She must have been feeling lucky that day because she was giving that day. She assured Keener that she felt safe because she knew Rogers as they left the pub. Perhaps she thought that Rogers' connection to the establishment made him safe. Why would a man she saw attempt to hurt her? Although it took 4 more days to definitely identify Gallagher, her body was discovered in her burned-out truck the following morning. An autopsy revealed that she had been indecently assaulted and strangled. But Rogers, who had once frequented the establishment, was nowhere to be seen. He had also left his residence, where police discovered the victim's earring on a woman. Later, it was revealed that Rogers had described this murder as the 7th time, according to a friend of his. But Rogers was no longer there after getting on a bus or buying a truck. He was hard to find by the police, which was disastrous for at least 3 more victims. But Rogers had also come under investigation for a different murder, the victim of which was a guy. Rogers had resided in the Ohio town of Hamilton before moving to California. He struggled to make ends meet while working odd jobs, but his mother would not let him live with her. Mark Peters, a seasoned electrician who is 71 years old, offered to take Glenn in and assist him in getting back on his feet. In exchange for lodging and food, he would ask him to run a few simple errands. Peters had a caring family nearby, so when he went missing in the latter part of October, his daughter Joan alerted the authorities. She claimed that Peters had many firearms, an assortment of coins, and some antiques, all of which were now missing. The police conducted a thorough search but were unable to locate the missing individual. The police spoke with Glenn Rogers' brother Clay, who had just lately returned from prison, as both Glenn Rogers and Peters' car had vanished. According to what Clay reportedly told the police, Glenn had been eager to raise cash for his bond. He intended to take from Peters and sell what he could. It occurred in October. A short time later, Glenn informed Clay that Peters had passed away and that it had been an accident. In Beattyville, Kentucky, he had also visited the family cabin, so it was probable that the police would discover something there. On January 10, 1994, Kentucky authorities searched the property and discovered a skeleton chained to a chair underneath a stack of furniture. Officials were unable to determine the cause of death because of the condition of the remains. It appeared to be anything but an accident, though. They began the process of determining the identity, and it took experts and anthropologists 2 months of hard work before they could confirm that the bones were those of Mark Peters. Glenn had already been charged with assaulting a female and detained in California. The identification he presented to the authorities there was that of James Peters, Mark's son. In an early instance of identity theft, Rogers obtained a California driver's license using his social security number, ran up substantial debts, and had bills delivered to Mark Peters. So much for paying back an elderly man's generosity. His family had lost everything. He evaded capture while the police searched for him, giving him time to carry out another murder before escaping to another state. Rogers reportedly flew straight from California to Jackson, Mississippi, where he made himself at home among the locals. He was wanted by the FBI, but he was unaware that a federal warrant had been issued for his arrest. He asked a friend for money but avoided locations where he was well known. He alternated between many low-cost motels in Jackson. Early that October, while attending a state fair, he met Linda Price, a 34-year-old mother of 2 who was also a redhead. She is said to have an irresistible passion for life by Linedecker. She was thin and lovely at 110 pounds and 5 feet 4 inches. They got together in a tent provided by the neighborhood paper. She must have fallen for Rogers' nice looks and smooth tongue because he moved in with her for a few weeks and they started hanging out together. She disregarded her brother's advice that Rogers was a bad match. She appreciated the way he was treating her because she had a difficult time with men in the past. In addition, she felt lonely, so having some company was pleasant. In order to reassure her mother that she was content, she maintained contact with her. Her relatives called the police to check her apartment on November 3 because they were worried because they hadn't heard from her. Linda was found dead from stab wounds, lying naked in the bathtub. She had 4 severe knife wounds to her back and chest and was face down. Her throat had also been cut. Although it was challenging to determine a precise time given the condition of Linda's bones, the pathologist assessed that she had been dead for 2 to 4 days. Her red Datsun pickup, pocketbook, and some jewelry were all gone. Her new beau was also. He had actually done a good job of completely obscuring his existence. He had scrubbed the apartment of his fingerprints and given the body a shower to remove any traces of blood and any other evidence that might link him to it. Strangely, a statement scrawled in lipstick on the mirror seemed to place the blame elsewhere. "Glenn, we found you," as if someone had been seeking for him and he had sped off before they got there, killing Linda instead. Everyone knew it was a very obvious ruse, and only Glenn Rogers was thought to be the real killer. The arrest warrant from Van Nuys came up when the cops entered his name into the FBI's National Crime Database computer. They were now aware that they had a killer, possibly a serial killer. Once more, Rogers boarded a bus and traveled to Louisiana, where he ran into 37-year-old Andy Giles, or Lou, Sutton in a pub in the Shreveport suburb of Bossier City. Sutton agreed to let him stay with her after he left with her. But first, in an on-site excursion, he boarded a bus and traveled to Tampa, Florida. He would return with an automobile he had never had before, but Andy would have no idea who had taken it. Rogers had experience working the carnival circuit as a means of traveling around the nation, so he was familiar with Gibsonton,